What's going on, family? I pray everybody's doing well as we out top. Give the Most High all the honor, the glory, all praise, and worship. Thank you, Yahushua, who hung, bled, and died. I'm going to dive directly into this. This is a video response back to you, bass player. I don't know if that video went viral, but I did see it about Pastor Brian Cohen, about him calling that bass player out in service. And you want to know from a musician standpoint, let me say this, because those of you out there like me, if you came up old school, that was nothing. My partner sent that to me, and like I told him, man, that is nothing. We saw that growing up. We was a part of that growing up. Back when we was coming up as musicians, them directors, they did not play. They would easily call you out in choir rehearsal, and they would easily make a fool of you on a Sunday morning. That's just how they did it back then. They didn't care about how you felt. If you was doing them concerts, you know, what they call it when they used to send you off to the workshop. There we go. Thank you, Holy Spirit. You get called out so hard in the workshop, and they wouldn't bite their tongue on no Sunday morning either. So, but I will say this. In this daytime, because I heard what Fred Hammond said too. Fred Hammond made a great comment about it. But in this daytime, a lot of musicians are very sensitive. They wouldn't have made it back when I was coming up, because especially when a choir director or the minister of music, but mostly back then you had choir directors, and a lot of minister of music was the choir director also. But then a lot of churches had their own choir director that stood out front. But a choir director, especially when you start dealing with sopranos, they call you out quick. They ain't care about how you, and will tell you to sit down. And if you came in there late, they'll tell you don't get in the choir stand. So I look at what I came from. It didn't do nothing but make us better, because we had to know our instrument. That's why I made a lot of musicians mad when I did them videos back in the day on here about stop transposing, because I was brought up on the Fender Rose. Anybody know what the Fender Rose is? I call it the old Ray Charles. D'Angelo was known for playing that Fender Rose. That's what he stayed on. But a Fender Rose and a B3 organ, or an A3 organ, a C3 organ, and the piano, before technology got to the point where it is now. But that bass player was humble. Now let me get to my point. That pastor could have got cussed out if he would have caught the right bass player on that right day. Somebody catch that. You got some pastors that'll front you out, but you got some musicians that'll go back and forth right with you, and they don't care about it being on no Sunday morning. So it just depends on who the musician is and how they take it. Because, like I say, what he did, like he say, you can't hear? He didn't say it in no screaming, yelling way, but the musician still could have got easily offended because church got quiet. Some people don't like getting fronted out like this, so he just happened to have the bass player that's very, very humble, because I know some cats, that'd have been a bass player, that'd have been a drummer, they'd have cussed Pastor Brian slap out. And it wouldn't have been nothing holy coming out their mouth, trust me. So, you know, hey, he could have done that a better way, yeah. Now, the thing is, I don't know if he was making that song up on the spot, because the thing is, a musician is going to play what they hear, especially when there's no sheet music. Now, I don't know if he just made that song up on the spot, and if he did, he could have handled it a better way, like, oh, don't worry about it right now. But they still caught it. You know, he just, sometimes you can be some of the coldest musicians, but still, if you ain't never heard a song, you're gonna play it the way you're hearing it in your head, in your mindset. And they may, that might not be right, brother. Cause I come up in an era, man, where people get up, start singing, man, and that key too high. Bring me back. You bring me down the key. I used to literally sit on the keyboard and the piano, and some people get up and can't sing. That key too high too. You can go through all 12 keys and they'll swear you ain't went through them. A flat, that's not my key. Okay, can you drop me down to B flat then? Some people don't even know the key. They'll just, well, put me in C sharp then. And you just sitting there just going back and forth. And some people are very tone deaf. See, as a musician, you deal with a lot. When you teaching choir parts, harmony, and you got tone deaf people, I ain't talked about this in a long time on here, but Y'all know who, when you got tone deaf people who swear they can sing, man, they really cannot hear. And you got a lot of people that do have perfect pitch. But then, see, when I was coming up, we had choirs, and there was always somebody in the choir that can hear their harmony. We had cold-blooded sopranos, so we called them what? Section leaders. That, man, everybody stand over there. Such and such is giving you your alto note. Such and such is giving you your soprano note. Brother Bone holding it down in the tenor section. So that also made it easier for the director. That's why I always say there's a difference between rehearsing and practicing. You practice on your own time. Rehearsal, you put it together. But it's a lot of musicians don't understand that. And that's why when you get in the church bed, there's so much time wasted because you got the musicians trying to learn the song. And, you know, instead of learning it at home, you come in there trying to learn the music and teach harmony. And somebody getting restless. I mean, it's like somebody getting mad. They stand on that section too long. You always got that one or two sopranos that's going to get mad. You got the tenors that's already hard for them to stay in there. But now the tenors are the sopranos. Somebody catch that later. I know they went over somebody's head. They went over somebody's head. But once again, if he was making a song up too, that's totally different. But that's not the first time. Like I told my boy, that dude is always, man, doing something and being out in the middle of social media about it. And it just nowadays, when you start talking about music now, man, you got to realize a lot of these pastors out here, they are nothing but entertainers. A lot of the musicians are not holy. You got entertainers out here, man, and they call the entertainment holy a lot of times. And you got to realize, man, it's just putting on shows, you know. And you see it all the time. You see it all the time. So that's just my little 2 cents, man. That wasn't nothing compared to what I saw growing up, man. And then all of a sudden, the homosexual director started taking over, and you start seeing that more and more and more. That's why I talk so bad about that GMWA, them workshops, and it just started being full of all that homosexual spirit. People got mad at me back then that James Cleveland started that stuff. And when I started talking about all that stuff, and the people started bringing it to them churches and paying the clinician or the minister of media or whoever you inviting in, and they charging your church $5,000-$6,000 to come present to you some songs. Man, I've been through all that stuff, man. That's why I left this stuff alone. It was nothing but a bunch of mess. It was GMWA. They started calling that gay men of America, gay men with attitudes. It still got so bad they started changing the name, and now you got all this homosexual spirit all over everywhere, man. And I mean this out of love, y'all. I'm just telling the truth. And I might as well throw it in this video because the truth is the truth. So again, most of your leaders in a lot of those churches are homosexuals anyway, and you know they get real sensitive. So once again, that dude, whoever, shout out to that bass player, man, because he could have snapped. He could have snapped, but he didn't. Now I know some bass players, yeah. That's why I say I know some bass players, some keyboard players, some drummers. They'll let you have it, man, right then and right there, and they don't care who looking. Pastors get cussed out too. All the time, man. So that's just my little 2 cents, man. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom.